Margaret from Blue Monkey Tea Company in Pittsburgh. Welcome to this edition of Saturday Tea Saturday Live. Today we have special presentation, special workshop, tea and chocolate pairing. You can pair those two to achieve special new great sensory experience. If you have, like I said, if you have purchased this special tea and chocolate tea pairing kit, you will be also able to experiment along with me either live today or by watching this video later on YouTube channel. And these tea sets, tea and chocolate tasting sets are available on our website, which is www.bluemonkeytea.com. www.bluemonkeytea.com. So let's get started. I do have some notes here. Try color. Tea as wine can be paired really well with various foods and drinks, such as chocolate, other desserts, cheeses, and also other dishes and drinks. Like I already did a session on mocktails. You can also make cocktails with tea. And many teas have chocolate added to them. For example, strawberry chocolate or coconut chocolate. We also have many loose leaf teas. We have chocolate tea with chocolate chips. We have chocolate orange pu'er tea, chocolate mint rooibos. So that's another sort of way of pairing chocolate with tea. But it is so much better to have tea, pure tea, without any added flavor, and pure chocolate, and do the pairing this way. Today, like I said, we're going to test all various types of chocolate and various types of tea. But first, let me introduce these two characters individually. We're going to start with tea. Tea is a plant. Even though there's many different types of tea, but they all come from the same plant. The plant is Camellia sinensis. It likes tropical and subtropical climate, and you probably know that most tea comes from countries like China, India, Sri Lanka, Japan, Kenya. Camellia sinensis can grow into a tree, but usually it doesn't because it's trimmed at the waist level for easy leaf picking. And they usually just harvest bud and two top leaves. Sometimes they go lower. They will use third and fourth, but very rarely. History of teas. It's been around for millennia. It actually was discovered about 5,000 years ago in China. And for many years it was used medicinally. And then eventually during the Tang dynasty, it became a very treasured, cherished, and also ceremonial drink. Now there's 4 basic types of tea, but they don't depend on species, because like I told you, there's only one species. There's several subspecies, there are hybrids, there are cultivars, but there's one basic species, and it's called Camellia sinensis. Now the type of tea, there are 4 basic types of tea: black, green, oolong, and white. And the final characteristic of these teas depend on the type of processing that they undergo after harvest. Black tea is fully oxidized, that's why it's so dark and strong, full body. Green tea is unoxidized, and that's why it maintains the green color and freshness. Oolong tea is somewhere in between. It's partially oxidized. And white tea undergoes very special processing. There's a little bit of oxidation. Main characteristic of the white tea is that a lot of times it only consists of buds or buds on the very small leaves. And it's pretty light. So many people, not too many people actually had experience of drinking white tea. Usually when you go to a supermarket, you get white tea that's heavily flavored. But it can be really, real treat. It could be a very rewarding experience if you know what notes to look for. Chocolate. Chocolate apparently was already known 1400 BC because there were traces of cacao discovered in Honduras that they thought they're pretty sure they originated 1400 years BC. Also, Mayans and Aztecs, they enjoyed cocoa in 6th century AD Mayan culture and in 12th century AD Aztecs. Cacao beans were actually used as a currency at that time. For example, Turkey was worth 100 cacao beans. And cacao tree, which is in the Latin name is Theobroma cacao, which means food of the gods, of course, can also grow pretty high, about 15-20 feet, and fruits actually, which look sort of like this. I happen to have a replica of the cacao pod. They grow from trunks, and after harvesting they cut them open, and there are cacao beans inside, covered in a whitish membrane. And those cacao beans are going to be first they form like heaps of those for initial fermentation, and that process, the high humidity and warmth inside of those heaps, will make them a little less bitter, improve the flavor. Then they're going to be dried up and transported very quickly to less humid climate. One of the shipping ports for cacao beans, one of the biggest ports is Amsterdam. Most of the areas that grow cacao, they have to be within 20 degrees north or south of the equator. It has to be hot and humid climate. And most of the cacao comes from Ivory Coast in West Africa, from Central and South America, and also from countries like Indonesia, India, and Philippines. I think that's enough. So how do they make chocolates out of those cacao pods? Well, they, like I said, there are seeds inside, so those are called cacao beans. And once they make it to the final destination, let's say to Pittsburgh, they will be roasted, ground, and then that grinding will cause them to liquefy. And that liquor is called cocoa liquor. Then they're going to separate the dry content, which is cacao powder, or cocoa, we can call it now cocoa powder, and cocoa butter. Cocoa butter is that fatty component that's left over, but it's also useful. Eventually, chocolate will be made from cacao powder or cocoa powder, cocoa butter, and also from the cocoa liqueur, which is that original component obtained from cocoa beans. It's a little complicated, and I don't want to get into detail right now on this. I have a separate class on chocolate, so check it out. How is the chocolate made? So these three ingredients are combined together, and depending on what's added to it, like milk, then we're gonna have milk chocolate, or it could be some fruits, It could be some nuts. So this is how the chocolate bars or chocolate candy are created. There are 4 types of chocolate, basic types of chocolate. We have unsweetened chocolate, which is called bitter or baking chocolate. Dark chocolate, which is chocolate with the cacao content of 60% or more. This particular one, for example, has 85%. This was included in your tea and chocolate tasting kits. Milk chocolate will have added milk, and it could be either condensed milk or powder milk. We have milk chocolate from Europe. Woohoo! European chocolates are yummy because they have higher standard on, they have to have at least 25% of cocoa content, while American chocolates are allowed to have only 10%. And the other stuff is some gooey stuff in them. But we like it. And white chocolate, which is actually not a chocolate. There is no cacao, no cocoa in white chocolate at all. It's basically just that cocoa butter, which still comes from cocoa beans, but it's the fatty content, and sugar. It could be some vanilla, soy lecithin to make it into a shelf-stable product. But it is also very yummy. Both tea and chocolate have health benefits. They're pretty similar. They both have a lot of antioxidants, and they improve your mood. And tea, it has an ingredient called L-theanine, which is stimulates alpha brain activity and puts us in a state of mindful clarity and relaxation. Now, chocolate stimulates production of endorphin level. Chocolate and tea also contain, they both contain antioxidants, so they will be helpful in preventing mutations and other diseases. And they also contain minerals, vitamins. So, win-win situation. This interesting fact, and I mentioned that before. There was a lady in France, Jean-Louis Calment, who lived to be 122 years old, and she ate up to 2 pounds of chocolate per week. So, go figure. I think chocolate might be actually healthy. Yes. So, chocolate is also about aphrodisiac. That's why we buy chocolate for Valentine. So it's all about mood, and I always used to think it's a serotonin. Some sources say that chocolate actually has serotonin in it, but I think it's more about endorphins. It helps to increase endorphin level. So eat chocolate, but in moderation. The recommended dose of chocolate, and of course dark chocolate is a better choice, at least 60% of cocoa content. You're supposed to eat approximately 1 ounce, and average chocolate bar has 3.5 ounces, so we only eat about 1/3 of the chocolate bar per day, which is still quite a bit. So yeah, now let's move on to our experiment. And like I said, those two are delicious by themselves, but when you marry those, you get something totally new, very unexpected tasting experience. I have 3 types of chocolate here. So I have dark milk. I have 85%. I have milk chocolate, Milka from Germany, and I have white chocolate, also Lindt. You can also experiment with flavored chocolate or fruit chocolate. Orange chocolate goes really well with Earl Grey, for example, or any kind of citrus teas. Today, I will be just using those three here. When you can, at home, you don't have to do all these 6 teas at once. It might be easier to actually just brew 1 or 2 teas and do tea tasting with just 1 or 2 teas and various chocolates. However, today I'm going to pair 6 teas, and once again, I think I forgot to mention which teas for this particular video content. And first off, let's start with chocolates. I'm going to use white, milk, and dark chocolate. Today I'm going to use 85%. Okay, so these are the teas that we're going to be brewing and tasting. I already prepared them ahead of time. I keep them nice and warm here. We have jasmine green, genmaicha. That's a Japanese tea with roasted rice, and some of the rice pops and looks like popcorn. Milk oolong, Assam black tea, Lapsang Souchong, which is a black smoky tea, and chestnut. I chose chestnut flavored tea. Make sure you follow the proper steeping instructions, because you want to extract these teas in the best way possible. And except for that chestnut tea, as you notice, I am using pure teas because I suggest that you go with the natural flavor of tea, not the artificial. But I was really tempted to use that chestnut tea today too. So we have teas brewed, we have chocolates, break chocolates into bite-sized pieces. Make sure you focus, you stay, when you do your session, try to be relaxed, have nice and quiet spot, avoid noise. You might even close your eyes when you taste your teas, because you want to eliminate all other sensory experiences. It's just you and tea and chocolate. So focus on your tasting and on your olfactory experience and mouthfeel, because these are the 3 things that are going to play a role in this tasting session. Make sure that you brew teas properly, proper amount of tea, proper water temperature for steeping, and proper steeping time. I have a class that is very good for beginners, people who are new to loose leaf tea. It's called Tea 101, Plain and Simple for Beginners. It's available on our YouTube channel as well, along with many other classes. Okay. Keep in mind that everyone's taste buds are different, because we have different genotypes. So one person may taste some notes in tea, and next person who's tasting the same tea at the same time might not taste it at all, or they might taste them differently. So but you can also train your bud. Sometimes it's hard in the beginning to discern, to identify notes in tea or foods, but you can actually, not only by focusing, concentrating, but also by repeating, tasting, and knowing what to look for, you actually can train your taste buds to for this experience. Keep your tea warm. Don't make it too hot. I mean, you make it hot, but don't keep it too hot, because you don't want to burn your tongue. Then you won't be able to perceive the taste. one technique that's very popular and good in tea tasting or wine tasting as well is slurping. That's why I have this big spoon here. By slurping tea, you spray tea with more force onto the back of your mouth, and it also aerates and releases those volatile components, which would otherwise, if you just swallow tea quickly, everything just goes through your mouth very quickly, and those volatile components, aromatics, they don't have a chance to actually come out. So slurping is very good. And I will be doing slurping today. That's why I have a tablespoon. So what are we looking for is to assess is, let's start with tea. We're going to look for mouthfeel, aroma, and taste. I have posted a few minutes ago descriptors for you. They're also available on our website. You just go and look for tea and events section, go to tea and chocolate pairing, and I just posted a list of descriptors for aroma and taste, for mouthfeel, texture, body, and for finish. Finish is echo, they call it echo, also after you swallow. In fact, the proper way to taste, you slurp, you swish, cover all parts of your mouth, tongue, and then you exhale with your mouth closed, and close your eyes if if you're safe, because that will help you discern all these different factors, tasting and aroma. There's also such thing as a flavor wheel. I think we have it on our website too. I borrowed it from Mayleaf, but there are several flavor wheels. They're very helpful. I picked some of these flavors, aromas, the ones that I find the most useful for me, and I hope you will find them useful too. So if you don't have them handy, if you didn't see them on Facebook yet, I mean, you guys can probably just, if you are on your computers or cell phones, you can probably just click on www.bluemonkeytea.com and go to tea classes event section and find this chocolate and tea pairing class, and you will be able to see a list of these, because trust me, these are very, very helpful, because many people will just take a sip and say, oh, well, it tastes bitter or grassy or light, and these are not very descriptive, so it's good to have more words to work with. And I'm just going to give you an example. Aroma and taste, I have categories: floral, grassy, fruity, toasty, nutty, cooking flavors, other. And then I have descriptors for mouthfeel, texture, body, thin, thick, dry, bitter, sparkling, astringent, coffee-like. And we have finish. It could be long, short, clean, vague, intense, brisk, dull. But don't just stick with these descriptors. You can create your own. Many times you can compare taste to foods. Sometimes it not necessarily might be foods. Like, for example, camphor. That's very, a lot of people describe Lapsang Souchong as kind of camphory, kind of like a vapor rub, smell, taste. And you can associate flavor, aroma, maybe with some happening from the past, maybe a person, Like maybe you were sitting with grandma and had apple pie, and would be some apple pie notes in your tea. So you not necessarily uh, identify pure aromas and tastes, but you can also identify, maybe associate events, places, or some other happenings from past. Fun. It's very interesting. And now I'm going to get started. You guys ready? Oh, one more thing. So you can steep your teas like I did ahead of time, and I kept them warm. I made them in mugs. I observed all those proper steeping rules, you know, the amount of tea, the temperature, water temperature, steeping time, because it's very important. But also, one of the best ways to have a more intense experience with tea aroma taste is to steep your tea in a Gai Wan. It's a Gong Fu Eastern way of making tea, where you place a lot more tea into this cup and then cover it and steep for a short period of time, like 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And then you pour it out into another cup. And this way you have a stronger brew, and you can also make several repeated steeps with this method. And also, and every steeping is different. So you can have one type of tea, but different experience, different sensations with each steep. So this is very interesting too. Okay guys, let's get ready. Let's start with jasmine tea. I also have a sheet with notes, like to take notes. Find that. It was in your sets too, but I probably won't be able to find, but that's okay. I will be just talking about my sensations. But it's really good to have a writing pad. This is a form I designed. It's chocolate and tea pairing notes. First column, tea type, taste of tea by itself, taste with one type of chocolate and other type of chocolate. But of course you can customize these and taste all different chocolates with this. You can also do one first steeping, second steeping, and so on. In general, chocolate and tea can be paired as like and like, where they have the same similar qualities and similar, spectrum of taste, aroma, or as a contrast, which is very interesting. And you never know, these you might even taste tea that you normally don't like, but paired with chocolate will give you a whole new tea experience. Fun, fun, fun! Oh, I can't wait! So, I know, okay, so let's do jasmine. Jasmine is goes really well, interesting pairing with milk or dark chocolate. So let's taste jasmine by itself. I'm going to do slurping. I slurp and I swish, but now I open my mouth, so keep your mouth closed. This tea, of course, has floral taste. I'd say the body is thick, not super thick, but it's pretty substantial. There's also buttery notes, and let me grab my descriptors here. I taste a little bit of peach in it, and it has honey. I taste a little bit of honey too. Finish long, clean. Now let's taste milk chocolate with it. So one more time, let's take a sip. Bite of chocolate. And chocolate shouldn't be cold. Don't keep it in the fridge before. Chocolate should never be kept in the fridge. The warm temperature of tea helps to melt chocolate faster. Now take another sip. Very interesting because the creaminess, sweetness, for some reason diminished. And there is now, let me try again, more grassy notes, believe it or not. So we're getting into grassy characteristics, and it's pretty pungent. It's a more so like a fresh cut grass. Mouthfeel, it changed. It became a little thicker, even thicker than it was before, and finish is short. So how about you guys? I'm having fun. It's okay. I'm not going to write notes because this is going to extend this session. But let's try it with another tea. Okay, we're taking a slurp. Coat, mouth. Oh, also make sure your palate is clean. Don't eat anything spicy or heavily flavored before, like garlic. I mean onion. And in between teas, chocolates, you might want to take a few sips of water. So let's see how jasmine tea will pair with dark chocolate. Make sure you swallow the whole thing, chocolate. It's much more subtle. Let's try one more. More mellow. So this was contrast, the second one. And yes, the dark chocolate offset that creamy, milky, kind of jasmine-y flavor, but it's still very, very interesting. It actually became more buttery, toasty. I can almost feel some toasty notes. So very short finish. Both chocolates cause this tea to have a shorter echo. Oh, interesting. So let's move on to Genmaicha. Genmaicha is that tea with roasted rice. So by adding the roasted rice, they give this tea kind of roasty, toasty character. So let's taste this tea by itself. Definitely toasty, as you know, as it was expected. But let's see. I can taste a little bit of course, popcorn taste because of the popped rice. But I also taste a little bit of berries in it, like a little bit of fruitiness. It's pretty thin. The mouthfeel is quite thin, and you can actually see by clarity this is a very clear tea, not like jasmine. And finish, let's see, finish is pretty short too. It becomes a little creamy too. Okay, so tea that would go well, interesting combination is a white chocolate. And this will be make sure you swallow it. White chocolate, it's really good. Now, of course, the toastiness almost disappeared, and it is similar, somewhat similar to milk oolong for some reason. It's very mellow. It has those buttery notes. I'd say I probably taste a little bit of the pound cake in it, if you know what I mean. And honey. Now, as you all know, I love black teas. I like strong teas. So, but I do enjoy various teas. So, these teas are those lighter tasting tea, and they require a little more concentration and maybe better developed, more sensitive taste buds. I know some of you have very sensitive taste buds, and you're probably going to taste this tea and identify different notes. But yeah, pound cake. Yeah. It's very pleasant. It's very pleasing. But it's not as interesting as the jasmine tea that I just tasted before. Okay, move over. Good matcha. Now we're going to have milk oolong, Gwanja milk oolong. This is one of those teas that almost everybody, 99% people enjoy, even if they never had oolong or green tea before, because this tea has amazing aroma. So, as the name indicates, it's a creamy, milky, but it also has orchid-like notes. Let's drink some water. Yeah, make sure you clean, leave this open. Slurp. I also taste a little bit of vanilla, and believe it or not, honeysuckle. This let's see how this tea will change, and it has a long finish, and the mouthfeel is actually pretty thick. It's very creamy, very thick, very pleasant. I hope you had this tea already, or you're going to have, because it's amazing tea. I almost feel like it's a waste of tea to try it with chocolates, but just let's go ahead and do it. So the recommended chocolate for pairing will be white chocolate. So it's going to be like and like creamy, smooth, buttery tea with the creamy white chocolate. You don't want to leave too much chocolate in your mouth because it's going to overpower the tea. Just enough to coat. Very, very interesting. The creaminess, orchid-like aroma and scent are still pretty prominent, but there's something else coming. I think it's becoming a little toasty for some reason. I can almost taste like a walnut notes in it. The finish and mouthfeel didn't change, but it definitely gained some, like I said, some kind of a little bit of like nuttiness for some reason, and it's probably, I would probably identify this as walnut. But like I said, don't just stop on that one tasting. Continue experimenting, tasting. Like I said, quiet environment, relaxed atmosphere, no stimuli. Close your eyes, reduce the noise, or try not to have any noise. Okay, done with these three. Let's move on to the heavier stuff, my favorite, dark teas. And I don't even know. Okay, I know what's this. Interesting. Let's try and see what it is. Okay, so this is Assam. Assam is a black tea from India. I'm gonna keep these warm actually because they keep cooling off here quickly. It's winter time, and we turned off the heat because the fan was making noise. Joylan says, too much chocolate is never a problem. I love this. Agreed. I love it. It's dark teas, black teas, darker oolongs. That's my favorite section. So this is Assam. Assam has malty. Okay, let's talk about mouthfeel. It's definitely medium. It's not thick. It's not thin. It's dry. And it also a little astringent. And it's normal for a black tea. Now, there is some sweetness coming through. There's no flowers, no grassiness, but I can taste some kind of like grape wine notes, and that's probably has something to do with the maltiness. A little bit of popcorn. And believe it or not, there's a little bit of smokiness in it too. Okay, the recommended chocolate to go with Assam milk chocolate. So it's It could be considered a contrast, but because there's a little bit of that maltiness, that kind of like toastiness in this tea, using milk chocolate with Assam can also be like and like. Try it, and actually I'm going to just take a sip like that. Oh. Oh, it has changed. No more bitterness. No more astringency. There's more maltiness. It becomes, I almost taste some new notes in it. More so like cocoa, maybe even a little bit of coffee like. That's very interesting. Yep. This definitely lost its kind of this astringency and you know, this bite that it had before, which is fine. It's very interesting. But I think I liked it better before chocolate. Okay, next tea will be Lapsang Souchong. That's a very interesting tea. It's a smoky tea. And they make this tea by smoking usually pine cones or pine needles underneath tea, and the smoke from burning these needles or pine cones permeates tea. So it is a very natural smoky flavor and aroma. Okay. Lapsang Souchong. Camphor like smoky, not so much flavor, taste as aroma. It's amazing. It's actually, the mouthfeel is intense, but I can't pinpoint if it's thin or thick. And it's not bitter, it's not sparkling. I can't pinpoint the mouthfeel right now, but the finish is very long. Finish is very long, and I'd say it's intense according to this the descriptors that I have here. So let's pair it with chocolate. We're going to do milk chocolate, so it's going to be as a contrast. I'm trying to melt this chocolate on both parts of my left and right in the back. Still, smokiness is present. Well, smokiness and the aroma, and that kind of camphor like a little bit earthy notes coming through. And again, it sort of starts to taste a little bit like a gingerbread cake to me. And of course, memories. Memories come to my mind from trips with my parents, camping trips, and of course campfire. Dry. It's also dry. I think the milk chocolate kind of intensified some of the characteristic of this tea. But generally, Lapsang Souchong pairs really well, not just with chocolate, but other sweet desserts. and also some drinks, because there are some bourbony notes in it, which I don't taste because I don't drink scotch or whiskey, but I know a lot of customers who drink those alcoholic beverages. They like combination of Lapsang Souchong with those. In fact, Winston Churchill used to add scotch to his Lapsang Souchong. And last but not least, it is chestnut tea. So it's not what we usually recommend for tea tasting, because you are supposed to taste those pure teas. There we go. But I've experimented with chestnut tea during the past tea and chocolate pairing sessions, and it was very interesting too. So it should taste like chestnut. Oh, it's very nutty. It's very pretty astringent, almost like Darjeeling. But again, there's some warm notes in it. It's I do taste a little bit of like peach or mango, but tiny little bit. And but there's also some, this earthiness and woodsy. It's a little woodsy, but chestnut notes, of course, come through. It is a little rough because it is a black tea, and doesn't have, except for the chestnut flavor, which is not the sweetness. It's just like nutty flavor added. Now the mouthfeel was astringent, and finish was short and intense. Let's see. Chestnut we're going to pair with dark chocolate. Take a sip, warm up my mouth. Chocolate is good. I don't fancy milk chocolate as much as dark chocolate. It's very interesting. Okay, my mouth is chocolate covered. Let's get another sip of chestnut tea. No astringency. It still has a intense, I don't like I said, it's not astringency, but it's becomes very thick and mellow. I wouldn't call it dull, but it kind of definitely mellowed out. And of course the chestnut and there's other nuttiness and toastiness that it's coming through, because the chocolate kind of offset that astringency and bitterness of the dark tea, black tea. So this is pretty enjoyable, very interesting experience. I hope you've learned how to do proper tea tasting. A lot of the material that I covered today is also included in advanced tea class, because I talk about all these professional tea tasting, and not just tea, but also it could be utilized with other foods and drinks. So advanced tea class covers tea tasting in more detail. Wow, now I have all this chocolate here. Happy Valentine. Okay, I think we're just about done. And just in a review, several teas that I've tasted, that I presented and tasted today, were all very, like I said, they were all various types, quite different. We had a couple green teas, we had oolong, we had smoky black tea, we had Assam regular black tea, and we had flavored chestnut tea. And I used milk, white, and dark chocolate. And by proper tasting and having just a little bite of chocolate, these teas definitely changed their characteristics. So that was a very interesting experiment, and I encourage you to try more at home with the various types of tea. Not only you can taste and enjoy over 350 teas that we have in stock, but you can now pair them with chocolate and create enormous amount of new combinations. You can also pair chocolates with cheeses. Pair teas with cheeses, which I'm going to put together a session on that too. Is there such thing as cheese day? Thanks again for joining. If you were late for this session, or if you had problem connecting, don't forget this will be this is being recorded, and it's going to be available on our YouTube channel, Blue Monkey Tea YouTube channel. Also, it's going to stay on our Facebook page. And if you guys have any questions, please send them to 100teacups@gmail.com. I'll be glad to answer your questions. And yeah, happy Valentine all. This was Margaret from Blue Monkey Tea Shop in Pittsburgh, talking about tea and chocolate pairing today. And I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you.